Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Reset Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Mignot. This is part of my 29 Days of Magic series where I get to interview amazing Black women every single day for Black History Month. And today I'm super excited to have Susan Chapman-Hughes, who's our board director. She has an incredible story, and I cannot wait for you all to hear it. So take a listen. Hey, Susan.
Hey Laura, how you doing?
Good. I'm glad I finally get to meet you. I've read about you a bunch, and now I get to actually talk to you. I'm happy.
I'm happy too, and that means we need to stay connected. So that's the first thing. How about that?
Oh, 110%. So, first question is always the same. Answer is always amazing. I'm sure yours will be no different. So, Susan, what was your first job?
Yeah, so it's so funny because technically my first job was as a candy striper at the hospital that my mom worked at.
Oh,
Because when I was like, I was called a preteen. She was like, you need to be engaged in some public service. And,
mm-hmm.
and so I was like, okay, well, so my mom's a nurse. My sister actually happens to be a nurse as well. And so, some people in my family thought I had this caring gene to do nursing as well. And so my mom's like, oh, come, work at the hospital as a candy striper, which is a volunteer role. Fine. And so I got there and realized that, yeah, nursing care
No.
was for me. But I did have fun while I was doing it because I ended up running the sterilization machines for all of the surgeries, which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
So that was my first, like I have to actually have to be on a schedule and go to work kind of situation. And then like my first paid job was other than like, internships and things in college. When I got out of grad school, I was a city planner for the city of Knoxville and Knox County, Tennessee. And
Wow.
yeah, right. I mean, like I have had this like crazy twist and turn career, but it's been so amazing. And so, yeah, I mean, I got out of planning school. There weren't a whole lot of jobs in planning. And I think there were 7 jobs in planning the year I came out of grad school. And so I got one of them, which was awesome. And I also got one where people didn't really want to do that work, which was neighborhood planning work. So I got to step in and take leadership responsibilities for, helping put together neighborhood plans in the city. And in particular, as it all often happens, where they were like, well, we got all these problems over in 5 Points. I'll let you guess where 5 Points is.
Yes, I can guess.
But I was like, look, I'm game because I feel like, look, our folks need support and help, and I think I can be effective. And it actually, when I look back, I think about defining moments in my life and career. It was one of those defining moments because I got a chance to experiment, try some things new, differently that, neighborhood planning really wasn't doing, which like bringing actual community members to the table, making them a part of the solution and bringing the people who had responsibility for those things, the fire chief, the police chief, you name it, head of Parks and Rec to the table as well, and driving a solutions oriented process or set of processes. And we actually got some stuff done, which was great. But, yeah, that was kind of like my first real, like, I have to make money and support myself job.
Wow. Okay, so two things. Is your family Caribbean?
No,
That's
um,
surprising because it's all the nurses, because my mom's a nurse and all my aunts are nurses, and my mom really wanted me to be a nurse, and it was like, yeah, blood, no thank you.
my family is from LA, and that would be Lower Alabama. They're like, oh, you from LA? They're from Lower Alabama, and both my parents actually from a county called Marengo County, which, as I understand it, at one point in time had the second largest population of enslaved people in the South during the height of slavery. But yet, when you go there, there's not, these great edifices these homages to slavery and the plantation homes and the, quote, cabins, because they burned it all down.
Right.
They were like, yo, we don't, this is not us. We gonna burn it down. So it doesn't exist anymore, which is actually pretty amazing. But yeah, that's where my family is from. And
Oh,
like many African Americans who have Southern roots, we migrated straight up the interstate system.
right.
So if you go from Alabama, there's a lot of folks in Ohio and Michigan. Mississippi has a lot of folks in Michigan as well. You go up the kind of Florida, Georgia route, but you got a bunch of folks in New York as a result of that. DC, the Carolinas. So yeah, we were, the Great Migration story as a family.
Yeah, go where you can actually find work and it won't be insane.
Well, and that's a really interesting point to make during this Black History Month because I was actually reflecting on this with my daughter, who, you know, insisted that she give a speech about Black History Month to her classmates this week, which was
This week.
week. She told her teacher that she felt like her own personal heritage was not reflected enough in the classroom, and she wanted to bring her own perspective to the table. And one of the things she talked about was the fact that her grandfather's grandfather was born into slavery. And so it really wasn't that long ago as people were talking about their, legacy and their family heritage. And, both of my parents were raised on sharecropping farms. And, if you know anything about the history of sharecropping, it certainly wasn't fair and
No,
it
of course
wasn't
not.
just, right? It wasn't just.
There wasn't really a share in that sharecropping.
Absolutely. But my grandfather, through, we still don't know whatever means that was, actually was able to purchase the land. I have the deed of the original mortgage as well as the payoff documents. It's really fascinating. And again, like, this is like my granddad. It's not like
Five
um,
generations.
exactly or 20, right? Which is how a lot of people like to do. So I just think it's, for us, despite the circumstances of what we're seeing today, we are resilient people across the board and we're going to figure it out.
We always have.
That's
I,
right.
and I think that, and honestly, that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this year, because I know I wasn't going to do it because I'm just like, as many Black women are, exhausted. But then I was like, well, no, I need to share these stories because every Black woman has an amazing story of resistance and revolution. And you need to hear those stories over and over and over again. And also, they all come with joy. And
Yeah,
so that's the big part about all of this is that ultimately this is just it's a joyful celebration of Black women.
absolutely.
Thank you for starting off this way. I love it. So, okay, so you have this amazing planning job, which clearly tells me that you were going to be a boss forever. And
I
now
don't know about that, but
if that's how you start, my darling, then there's
I
not.
didn't want to be broke. Let's start there.
Yeah, it's like you weren't going to be broke. There we go.
Yeah.
So after you killed the game in Knoxville and the playing side universe to where you are now, what's that career journey been like?
Oh, like totally. Like, I think it's probably more important to just understand like how I'm made. Like, I'm made where I need new challenges and I love learning new things. And so it's given me the opportunity, and I'm willing to take a decent amount of risk. So it's given me the opportunity to do some things that, like if you had asked me in high school, hey, do you think you'll ever be a senior executive in corporate America or serving on corporate boards of some of the most iconic companies in around? And I'd be like, I don't even know what that is. Right. So I think the lesson for me in my life has always been about taking advantage of opportunities, being open, setting actual goals for myself. And some of those goals are around pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and trying new things. Some of the other goals are around, building your self-esteem so that you recognize that you're on your own journey and not a journey that you should be comparing yourself to other people and trusting yourself and the capabilities that you've worked to build so hard that you will figure it out and having spiritual grounding to know that there is a path for you no matter what happens in the world. And so I'm very fortunate that, I had a mother who really focused on ensuring that I had two things. One, which was incredible self-confidence, and the second was an unbelievable amount of love, right? Just unconditional love and belief because my mom, the thing about the things that I've been able to do in my life and my career, neither one of my parents had any of those experiences, but my mom was always like, look, I don't really understand it, but if you think that is something that you want to do or go try, I'm going to do what I can to enable that for you. And so, several times during my journey, she made some big sacrifices for me to be able to take advantage of opportunities or do different things. And expand my horizons. And so my journey, I've done all kinds of things, right? I mean, I left planning, went into development consulting, then went to business school thinking I was going to become a developer. That didn't happen. I ended up going into real estate investment banking, had a long career in corporate real estate, doing a lot of really cool things for, again, some of the most iconic brands, and then switching over and becoming, a P&L owner to transform a business unit as well as, jumping into a role around digital data and ops. and all the while joining, my first corporate board over 13 years ago. So, if I think about the career journey, it's really awesome. The thing that I'm most proud of and believe, that's why we're put here is to impact people and communities because I've had a long career of public service that goes along with that, right? Serving on several nonprofits, particularly those things that impact our communities, our kids in particular. I'm trying to stay grounded and connected in those areas. And I think that, we are all here to be of service. And there is no time like the present for many more of us to step up and to serve the communities of folks who are less fortunate than us. It is unfortunate to see some of the amount of selfishness that is happening in the world, but I don't believe that this is how everybody, feels. And I do think that we have an obligation, particularly for kids who look like us, to open doors and opportunities for them as they move forward. Because it's not because they're not brilliant, it's not because they're not smart. It's usually just because they have not had the opportunity.
Amen. I had a feeling you'd preach a sermon, so this is none of those. None of those. It's interesting because I was having breakfast with a friend this morning, and we were having the same conversation. It's like we've gotten to a certain point, so hey, doors, come on through.
Yeah.
Like, I
Exactly.
don't because when I started my career like 15 years ago, and the same people who are still in the game, I remember those folks talking about how they're gonna open all these doors, and then never actually did.
Yes.
And I
I,
was like, I will never be that. And so
yeah.
I always tried. And again, it builds such a wonderful cornucopia of people. Like you end up building these amazing relationships that, cut across industry, cut across generations, and you build an awesome community when you just help other people. This is not complicated.
Yeah, and you never know, like, my mom used to have this thing where if you take care of the receiving will take care of itself. And so, be an unselfish giver in every aspect of your life. Now, that doesn't mean don't be taken advantage of. It just
Right.
means be a giver. And I think that I always feel like, and I've always been that friend or person in the community. It's like, yeah, I'll figure it out. Like if I need to share my last $5 with you because that's what's going to help you survive and do what you need to do, I'll figure it out how to get five more. I'm resilient and it's important to me. I mean, I've had so many people. I remember when I left American Express, for example, it was a tough decision to leave, and mainly because the people, right, that I had a chance to impact. And this group of young Black women, and this was during COVID, called me and said, "Hey, we want to." I didn't even know them, by the way. Most of them, they were like, "We want to give you your flowers," and I was like, "What are you giving me flowers for?" They were like, "Because you have no idea like how you've impacted us and supported us in ways that even you didn't know." And I was like, okay, well, cool. Like, look, if y'all want to do this, it's no big deal, but I don't need this. They were like, no, 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 let's do it. And they're like 600 people got on a call to just talk about how I impacted them or how my example helped them get the courage to go to the next level or do, whatever. And so I think you never know when that will come up. And I think there's also, the other lesson I learned from my mother is the importance of being consistent, right? No matter what the environment is or no matter where things are. And like right now, especially, as I look around and see like who are allies and who are people that I can trust as we navigate through this, I want to see the people who've been consistent, right? Because there's a lot of people who are like blowing in the wind. And I think the opportunity for us to improve communities doesn't stop just because an administration changes and they declare that, X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, there's a lot of chaos and a lot of craziness happening that we can see, but that does not mean that we need to be paralyzed. It means that we need to identify opportunities to A, help those who are most vulnerable, B, empower those who, have opportunity. A good friend of mine reminded me that in all chaos, there's opportunity. And so,
Bingo.
we have to just remember that, yeah, it don't feel good, but it ain't all bad if we're
Sure.
smart about it.
Yeah, and I think it's so important that people understand. I think a lot of folks, especially now, feel kind of paralyzed. And it's like, well, no,
Yeah.
there are roses grow through concrete. So you
And
can,
also, like one of my great mentors for many, many years, gave me and a group of young Black women probably 20 years ago, maybe 25 years ago, a speech about the importance of not giving away your personal power.
Hmm.
And that has always resonated with me because, they can change your circumstance. They can even try to impact whatever, but they cannot take away your personal power. You give that away. And so, that comes from having a strong mind, right? And so you have to constantly feed your brain the ability to stay strong and to, keep your compass straight. And, you can tell the people who are doing that and you can tell the people who aren't.
Oh yeah, without question. It's always you can always pretty easily spot those folks versus ones you're like, I don't know about that one. So you do all this really amazing work on staying on boards and obviously mentoring. What does Susan do for Susan? What do you do for your self-care?
Well, so I got this really amazingly talented daughter is 9. And when I was much younger, was very much into the arts and creativity, and it just wasn't a pathway that was possible for me when I was her age. And as I got older, I always kind of held on to the desire to want to do more in that space. And so now I have declared that I'm going to double down on it, especially since it's something that I can do with her.
Mhm.
So last year, as part of her annual recital, which was held at Carnegie Hall, was awesome. We performed a piece together on the piano with a small orchestra, which was amazing. And so we had to practice together and work hard together, and it was really awesome. So we did that. And so this year we were like, okay, well, what is going to be our thing this year? And so she actually said to me, Mom, would it be great if we wrote a musical together? And I was like, well, yeah, because that's everything in our life has been a musical since she was a baby. Whenever I want her to, focus on something, I sing it to her. And so, and she sings it back. So
Oh.
we were like, wouldn't it be cool if we actually wrote that and as our gift to our family and friends instead of physical things that we perform it around Christmas time? So we are currently working on our musical. It's called Saturday Morning, which is going to be exciting. And it's basically about, the life and times of a mother and a budding preteen. And I also have loved languages for many, many years. I used to be pretty decent at speaking French, but stepped away from it for a very long time just because I didn't have time to focus on it. And so I am committed to getting my language skills back up. My daughter is fluent in Spanish, and so I want to be able to converse with her in Spanish. So I have been diligently taking my Spanish and French daily lessons online.
Duolingo?
Yep, I'm on a 26-day streak. So I'm finding that I'm really enjoying it, and I stopped making excuses about why I can't do it. And it's been fascinating in terms of the amount of recall I have of both concepts and vocabulary and language. So that's been fun. And then I also just try to spend quality time with the people that I care about. So I've got a wonderful group of girlfriends, and I just feel like, especially when every time you turn around, somebody else is not here, spending quality time with them, just laughing and having a good time and investing in friendships is really important. So I do that. And, we do a series of things. We go to the spa. We sometimes just focus on getting a good night's sleep. We just check in with each other. So those are the things that are, on my list right now. I also want to get back to doing more international travel now that my daughter's older because I enjoy seeing the world and I want her to see more of the world. She's seen a lot of the world already in her 9 years, but there's so much more to do. So
Amazing. I love this. And so for you, do you have a give and or an ask of the audience?
I'll break it into two pieces. The first is something for others. I just would encourage everybody to think long and hard about what are the gifts that you can give to others who are in need. So, for example, the LA fires, everybody obviously, watched them in horror and just saw so many stories of, Black families whose grandparents had bought, homes and passed them down generationally. And that's the only wealth that they had, only to be wiped out through the fire and to, literally be homeless overnight. And so I was like, I can give some money to these families, but I also can, use my brain power to help. And so I know a couple of people on the ground out there who have been thinking about how to preserve the community in Altadena in particular. And they're looking for expertise. So if you are a finance person, an architect, a planner, you have skills, even interior design, like whatever it is your thing is, figure out how to find a community that is in need, including the communities, right near your home, and to give back to them. So if that means you volunteer supporting, some young people, and I live in New York City, and there's over 140,000 kids who are homeless, who are in school, which is crazy. And so, find those families and figure out how you can support them. So that's the first ask, because I think if they really need us right now. If we don't step up, then God knows what
Yeah,
will be.
now more than ever,
Yeah.
put your talents to
Um,
good use.
yeah. And then the second ask is, we're building our consulting firm. And so, if there's a project or a business that needs help scaling, needs some digital transformation expertise, you got a problem that there's probably not one that we can't solve. So we'd love to just continue to build the firm, create new opportunities, and particularly if there's nonprofits who need expertise in helping them scale or operationally right size so that they can scale their work, we'd love to work with them as well. So those are the two things that I think are helpful. And prayers are always good. I always take those. So
Absolutely. I can absolutely send some your way. And I will put all the details in the show notes for folks to get in contact with you to actually help them grow and scale their business. And now, last question for you. What's one thing that brings you joy?
oh, cooking. I
Ah,
love cooking for my friends, and I love, having them over and just spending the day experimenting and cooking and sharing my love and joy of cooking with them.
what's your favorite thing to cook?
I literally will cook anything.
Oh,
So, for lunch today, I was like starving. So I made a kind of like a Southwest scramble with some veggie chorizo, some charred corn, some vegetables, some cauliflower rice, and some black beans, and put a little sour cream on top of it in a tortilla, and it was delicious. So, I mean, I just love to cook anything. So,
you're making me very hungry.
and also like the other thing is I'm a freak for food presentation. Like I'm one of those people, like if it don't look good, then
Y'all can
I
eat
don't
it.
want to
Nah.
serve it. I mean, I may eat it, but I just don't want to serve it. So if you come to my table, you will see a beautiful table at all times. I don't care if it's like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or an Uncrustable. Haha, it's gonna look good on the plate.
That look good. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I'm inviting myself over for dinner.
You should absolutely come over.
Susan, oh my gosh, you packed so much delightful goodness and awesomeness in 20 minutes. It was amazing. I didn't have to say much. This is awesome.
Appreciate you doing this. And like, look, keep this up, right? We've got some interesting times ahead of us. And I shared this actually at an event I was at last night that, you always get invited to these events. You're like, oh, I'm not really sure I want to go. And so a friend of mine, they have a venture capital firm. It's called Aperture. And so they host these spark dinners from time to time. And Phil is really amazing in terms of how he helps the room, which are all these small, intimate engagements. And so what he asked us yesterday was to introduce yourself, say what you're doing, and then talk about what you're doing for care. And I just thought it was the most amazing experience because, usually I'm like, well, I'm gonna go to this thing for an hour and then I'm gonna go home. And I stayed because it was really fascinating. I made more connections in that room than I have in a very long time. And I think it's because he and his partners like you are looking to hold space that go beyond just doing business together, but really building community. And so keep doing what you're doing because this is building community and it's much needed right now.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate that. Like I said, I just think it's the right thing to do to build community. Like, why wouldn't we do this? So I am
You never
deeply,
know how many people don't think that way. And actually, you setting an example of think I'm not going to wait. I'm actually just going to do these 29 days regardless. And putting it out there it really makes a difference. So
thank you, ma'am. I do appreciate it. Susan, you're an absolute delight. Thank you so much for doing this. We'll put all the details in the show notes for folks to connect with you because this has just filled me with such joy and happiness to have this conversation with you and to finally meet you. Because I think, like I said, we know a million people in common, and now we finally
at
get.
1 degree of separation, but we just hadn't put our
But
faces together yet. But here
yeah,
we are.
but here we are. It's always in God's timing.
That's right.
Thank you so much. And that is our show.